Trusting God in transitions. So hello, my name is Ruth and welcome to Fragrance of a Flower. And in today's video, I'll be reading out a future letter to myself. So a background to this letter is that 6 days before Christmas, leading on to the year which I wrote this letter, I lost my job, and it's just so amazing how God definitely came through. So I made a big move. I was in the area of psychology. I was working within the National Health Organization, but I realized that this place where I was, this area I was working with, was not the one. So I took the leap and went into finance. So I was working in finance, doing auditing. But in terms of this contract, it was that if you failed your exam, you were literally off the job. So it was quite intense, So that happened to me where I didn't pass my exam. So it was kind of like I didn't know whether or not I would be, let go of this job, or whether or not I would have to pay for my exam. So it was kind of like I made the big leap. It didn't work out. I could have joined another firm in terms of another accountancy firm, but during this time of transition, I took time to pray, seek clarity, and I believe the answer was to go into research. So that is why, I started to apply for different jobs and then also apply for a PhD, because that was kind of, what I was seeing as I was spending time with God, was that to go to research, because that was the strength of mine. Finance is something I'm still really passionate about, and you never know what the future holds. But in this transition in my life, the message is that I was supposed to go to this path and also to the city that I'm currently living in. So yes, hope that gives you a bit more insight of the background of this letter. Say yes. As you take each day at a time, it may be difficult, but as we remember how God helped us in previous transition, it can help us when we face transitions again. So I just want to read out this letter to you as an encouragement, to you who are listening, but also to myself, because currently I'm kind of in a transition now. My contract in terms of my job is ending. And I'm just wondering, Lord, where do you want me to go? So I believe that God will keep me through the same way God miraculously opened a door for me, the same way God provided the job that I'm currently in, and also moving to this area, relocating. I know that God will also do it, but it's also very good to keep these things in our minds, because when we're going through transitions, it can be quite difficult, when we are thinking, where to go, what decisions we need to make. So I pray that this is an encouragement to you as I read this letter. A future letter to yourself is basically you write a letter and then you can say in a year, in 2 years or so, the letter comes back to you. So I wrote this letter in January and then it came to me 6 months later, and it's so crazy. What I wrote in the letter, God had truly fulfilled and opened the doors for this in terms of what happened in the letter. So as I was thinking about, right now I'm in a transition and asking God, to lead me, my mind drew me back to this transition letter and how God will do something for me as I wait upon him and actively seek in terms of what he wants me to do. So yes, now let me read my future letter. So it says, Dear future me, hello 2023. I'm writing this. It is the 16th of January 2023, and you're currently on day 6 of the 10 days of prayer. Let us rewind to the last year. You had a meeting with your workplace about the possible termination from your role as an auditor as you failed your exam. On this day, in your mind, it felt like maybe they might terminate your contract, but also felt that they might not terminate your contract, but that you would have the option to stay in your role, but maybe pay for your own exams. The uncertainty was real, but things got clear when the meeting ended with the end of termination of your contract. The end. From a job to being jobless just before the Christmas break. So dear friends, what will be very helpful if you could like this video, if you could subscribe, and also share it with a friend, because I'm sure that we have all been through transition, so someone can definitely benefit from this experience. You were free but without a job. Now, on the 16th of January, I'm praying to the Lord for clarity, because I know that He will direct my path. Over the weeks, I've seen that it is best that I go into research, or possibly even do a PhD. I'm hoping that when you read this in 6 months' time, you would have been awarded a fully funded PhD and that you are currently employed. It's crazy how some things end up, but I'm sure this experience will lead you closer to where the Lord wants you to be. I know God has a bright future for me, plans for me to prosper and to have an expected end. I also hope that over these 6 months that your walk with the Lord deepens, that you remember your worth and your calling and do not give into the pressures of this world. Sin may be sweet, but it only lasts a short time. But staying close to God will grant you an eternal reward. Leave the mistakes that you made in 2022 and press forward to the prize of the high calling of God in Christ Jesus. With God by your side, all things will be possible. Hold on to the promises of God and let God direct your path. Love, Ruth. So I wrote this letter, 16th of January, and then this letter got back to me on the 16th of July, 2023. And by the time this had happened, by the time I received the letter, the things had been fulfilled. God gave me the power and strength to keep applying, to keep, seeking. So I ended up getting a job, which is the job I'm currently in. And then I thankfully got a fully funded scholarship. So it was so encouraging, because in times when I was, thinking and trusting in God, I did actually remember the letter, but because the letter is locked, you can't, go back to what you're written. But it was kind of like an accountability to myself. And also the second part in terms of, being a Christian and being someone who walks with the Lord, because around that time, I realized that there were some influences. I believe that if they continually was around me, it wouldn't have been something good. So I had to remind myself and keep myself accountable. And by God's grace, God helped me to break, ties with, people that I knew would not be a good influence, because in the Bible it talks about bad company corrupts character. So there were 2 things in here, and I just thank God for that. So right now, as I'm in this transition page where my contract is coming to an end, because it was a 1-year contract, I can believe that God will truly be with me in the transitions. And on Friday morning, I remember saying, to my sisters that I just feel like a change will happen. You see, when you're waiting and you just think to yourself, what will be next? Am I going to go here? Am I going to get this job? Like, what does the Lord want me to do? And I just felt this impression that, something new was going to come. And then I received some news about something, and I just felt so encouraged, but it's not certain or anything like that. But the news I received just encouraged me to keep going and to dream big and not to have this small mindset. Because, for example, if God is leading and leading me to a place, then I must be growing better as a person, spiritually, in all areas of my life. So I just felt that was a big encouragement to me to keep pressing on. And I thought as well to share this with you, because many a times, we can be in a transition and we don't really share that, we're going through a transition. We just share the endings, like, for example, the ending of when everything worked out. But I'm reading this now in faith, believing that now, as I'm in this transition period, that God will give me clarity. And as I wait upon Him, I know I'll be able to look back like the same way in 2023, where I was able to say, God truly came through for me. He gave me the power, strength and courage to follow Him and to also go by His leading. And I think it can be quite difficult, following God's leading, because I relocated to a new city, etc. And it's like starting your life again, but knowing that God was the one who opened the door, knowing that God was the one who went before me, gave me encouragement to go ahead, and that He was the one guiding my footsteps during the transitions. So dear friends, I pray this was an encouragement to you that no matter what stage you're in, whether you're in a transition in terms of work, in terms of seeking the Lord on something else, or just in your life in general, just remember, in the same way God has been with you in your transitions in the past, God will be with you currently, and God will allow you to have an expected end. But we as people of God have to remember that as God comes through for us, let us always give Him thanks and praises. In the story of the lepers, we see that there were 10 lepers, but only one came back to give God thanks to God. And by God's grace, when I go through this transition, I will come back again and testify how God has truly been with me during my transition and given me an expected end. So move by faith, be encouraged, and let us not think small but think big, because our God is rich in resources. Shalom and have a blessed day. Bye. Keep believing and keep trusting.
Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine.